my pleasure to announce our next speaker. Her name is Nawrocka, and she's product manager at MessageBird. She's going to share more about MessageBird and why it's a great company to work for. Feel free to share in the chat your questions, and let's keep it interactive. Hi, Anna, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm doing great.
Really very happy to have you with us today. Where are you joining us from?
From Amsterdam.
From Amsterdam. That's really great. Awesome. Do we have any people here in the chat from Amsterdam? Say hi. Okay, our audience is super excited to hear your session.
Perfect. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the session. I'm Anna Nawrocka, a product manager at MessageBird, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about who we are as a company, what we do, and also invite you to join us in the journey of changing the way the world communicates. And I'd like to start by saying a couple of words about myself. I'm originally from Poland, and I came to Amsterdam about 8 years ago. Amsterdam is also where MessageBird has its headquarters. And I came here to study. And already from the very early age, I struggled a little bit with choosing the path for myself. Already at school, there were a lot of different subjects I enjoyed, a lot of different things I wanted to do, and a lot of very opposite things. I was really good at math and I enjoyed it, but I was also really good at languages and at literature and biology. So there was a mix and match of very different things. And so when I went to university, I sort of decided to delay the choice of one path. So I studied liberal arts and sciences, and that allowed me to sort of create my curriculum of things by myself. I did have to choose a major at some point, but I was able to take courses in pre-med and economics, and then I did literature and film philosophy, contemporary art. And at some point, I took a course in logic, and that's something that I really fell in love with. I really saw in how many things and how many different domains you can apply it. And from that, I went on to taking a whole bunch of programming languages courses, also network engineering, then went into the AI space, did some machine learning courses. And I also took courses within the sort of context of ethics in AI. So that was really interesting for me. And I ended up with a degree in computer science. And from there, I started working in different startups as a software engineer. And one of those startups at some point was focused around football streaming. And it's interesting because I remember my brother once asked me, and my brother is a big football fan. He asked, hey, when we were kids, I always tried to convince you to watch football games with me, to come to watch me play football. You were never interested in that. You never wanted anything to do with it. And now you work for a company that does football. How does that work? And I remember at the time I said to him, look, when you're an engineer, it doesn't really matter what products you're building, what the company that you work for does. It's sort of agnostic. It's all just writing code, the same programming languages, building interfaces, building components, building databases, different systems. It really doesn't matter. And it wasn't until I started working at MessageBird that I understood just how wrong I was, how much of a difference it really makes when you work for a company that solves problems that you can relate to, that you can identify yourself with. And if we think about it, we all communicate obviously with each other. We also communicate with businesses as consumers. And the more we mature, the more we grow, the more we realize how key communication is in our lives. And so MessageBird is a company that provides communication solutions to businesses. So it's B2B. Now you might now think, okay, this is not necessarily something we can all relate to. And you're to a large extent right, but MessageBird's mission is to create the future of communication. And when I joined the company a couple of years ago, the mission statement or the slogan was actually communication solved. And what we know and what we've realized over the years is that we can't solve the problem of communication and the challenge of communication without really catering for the end user, for the consumer, for the customer. And something else really worth mentioning here right now is that, you know, within the world that we're in right now, with technology developing so fast, where we all have all these devices, we're all using all these different channels like, you know, Messenger, WeChat, Line, WhatsApp, Telegram, email, SMS, Twitter, etc. That is very rapid, and customers sort of get to decide which channels they're using. Another thing is within the pace that we live in right now, everything is very dynamic, everything is very fast. There's no time to have the communication be ineffective. We need communication to be efficient. We need businesses to be where we are as consumers and also be available when we are. And so that leads us to the statement that we've noticed as a company, that businesses no longer dictate the way they talk to customers. Customers do. And this is really interesting. And that's exactly what started MessageBird's vision, where we believe in a world where communicating with a business feels as natural as communicating with a friend. And reading this, you might think to yourself, sure, great, big statement, but this is utopia. This is not what reality looks like right now. And it's very true. If you think about a simple example, if your Wi-Fi breaks, and these days we've all probably been working remotely way more than normal. So we've all experienced this, that your Wi-Fi breaks, what do? The standard first step is, okay, try turning it off and on again, maybe that works. But if it doesn't, you have to reach out to your provider to have them fix your problem as soon as possible. Now, you probably have a couple of options of doing that. You can call them, and when you call, very likely you're going to get stuck on the line for minutes, maybe even hours, listening to some music, hopefully not horrible music, but still, it puts you in a position where you're somewhat solving your issue, but it's not actionable. You're put on hold. You can't do anything else. You need to wait. It takes ages. It's very frustrating. So you might give up at some point and decide to send an email to the provider instead. But with an email, even though you might be hoping for a quick response, your expectation will likely be that the response might even come the next day or the day after. Now, if we go back to the statement, if you imagine that communicating and talking to your friends would look like this, that you would call a friend, they wouldn't answer for hours, or you would send them an email and you would have to wait until the next day for them to respond, well, they probably wouldn't be your friends anymore. So this is exactly the challenge that MessageBird is solving. And it's interesting because we can't say that we solved it. We can't say that we're solving it now. We want to keep solving it because the technological world is so dynamic and it keeps changing. It keeps developing. So we as a company want to keep up with that. We want to keep up with the technology, but also with the behavior of the consumer, with the behaviors of us as people. And so in terms of customers of MessageBird, here's a slide that contains a big list of some of our biggest customers, some of the companies that have trusted us over the years. And I'm not just showing it to, show off, but more to mention that MessageBird might be a company that you've never heard of. But it is very likely that you actually have used it in the past throughout your life. So some examples, if you think of Google or Facebook, logging into that, if you select the option to have two-factor authentication done through SMS, the SMS that is sent to you with the authentication code, that actually goes through MessageBird. Another example is Uber. If you order an Uber and maybe you can't find your driver, I guess we all know that there's an option in the app to call the Uber driver. But it's interesting to notice that you don't actually see the driver's number, neither does he see yours for privacy reasons. Now, this functionality is called number masking, and this is something that is also powered by MessageBird's voice capabilities. So we are actually all around, and all of these other logos shown here, but many, many others not included on this slide are using us. So you probably, by using them, have experienced use of our services as well. And so in terms of the journey of our company, we were founded in 2011, and the primary product that we provided was SMS through API. And throughout the years since then, we've built a lot of products. We've launched multiple different channels. We started by adding voice, but then going more towards adding modern channels of communication. And we expanded globally, both in terms of the offices that we have across the globe, but also in terms of our customers and where we were trying to see different problems and solve them. And right now, we're actually the first and only omni-channel platform as a service in the world. And why omni-channel, and why is that so important for us? As I mentioned before, customers dictate where they want to be contacted by businesses, where they want to talk to them. And there's just so many different channels these days that we all use. In different geographies, there's different channels that become most important. So it's very important that each business is available on all these channels. So it's becomes easier for their customers to communicate with them. Now, if you think about it, the traditional platforms in terms of that look a little bit like the chart on top here. So on one side, you have the company, at the end, you have the customer, and in the middle, you see all these different routes, and it becomes pretty complicated. In this chart, you only see 4 different channels, so SMS, WhatsApp, email, and voice, but imagine a company would want to be available on 15 different channels. That would mean even more of these routes. And what you can clearly see here is that it's very fragmented. And this is the setup. But if the setup is fragmented, the communication and result is naturally also fragmented. And this is the problem that we're solving with MessageBird. So at the bottom, you can see what the omni-channel platform that we're delivering looks like. So you still have the company on one end and the customer on the opposite end, but in between there's just one platform, one way of integrating with it, one way of easily setting it up, and then you can offer communication within the same way with the same standards to your customers across all these different channels. And here we only see 10, but we actually have a growing list of these channels. We're adding them very dynamically, and we follow on the behavior of end users, of consumers, and catch up with them to make sure that we're available to give the businesses that are our customers the ability to be available on all these channels. But okay, so MessageBird solves communication, but what does that actually mean in practice? So when we started as a company, as I mentioned, we started with SMS as a product, and we actually started with very technical products. We built APIs, and we built it first for SMS, then voice, these different use cases like 2-factor authentication, number masking, and so on. And then we started transitioning into adding all of these modern communication channels and building one single API that could be integrated to have them all. And we saw great success for that. A lot of companies were using us, but we at some point realized that the audience we were targeting was to some extent limited because they had to be large companies or companies that had development departments, companies maybe that were small startups but were very technical. But if you think about it, the communication problem is not just a problem for these companies. If you think of an e-commerce platform, maybe a small or medium business, maybe a platform selling shoes online, they also need to communicate with their customers. It becomes even more important for them to have an easy solution that they can use to be available across different channels so that somebody could complain about getting the wrong size of shoes delivered, maybe ask them questions about how refunds work. It's really important. And most likely that shoe shop doesn't have a development department. They would need to outsource this, and that would mean big investment for them. So at that point, we realized that we really need to open up to these companies, and we started building more turnkey solutions and out-of-the-box solutions, and building a platform that would enable companies to, with one click, within minutes or seconds, just get set up on all of these different channels to be able to easily talk to customers. And one of our recent products that we have developed is called Inbox, and it's a platform for many use cases. Think of, for example, customer success or customer support, where they get questions, issues, complaints from their customers over all these different channels. And as you can see here in the queue on the left side, there are these different tickets, different inquiries coming over different channels, but it all comes through one unified interface. And going even further, we see now a conversation with Alex going over WhatsApp. If Alex was to now send an email, that would still go to the same thread. So you get this 360 context of the customer, and that is really the power of having this platform. And it can also be used for different use cases like marketing, like sales, recruitment, or even finance. It could also be used by small business owners themselves. If they're a one-man operation, they could also use this to easily handle all issues across the different domains that their customers might be facing, or even just for communicating with them normally. But you might think, okay, this is a platform for talking to your customers, but don't these platforms already exist? Why did we build it? And this is an interesting question for sure. And I think the biggest value prop of Inbox, of our product, is that we build it now. because we build it with the modern communication channels in mind. We build it with the omni-channel idea in mind. We didn't have to try to stitch things together, but it's more a product that is looking towards the future. It's looking forward. And if you think about it, going from email to WhatsApp, for example, for consumers on their apps, everything is very snappy. These messages are very short, very quick, very frequent. So we knew that we had to build a platform on which for agents, for people handling these questions, it would be extremely simple to do it as well, to also have this snappy behavior. And that's a little bit where it came from. Another thing that we also are looking at is implementing a lot of automation. And you might think, okay, how does that fit in with the vision that we have? You know, if something's automated, that doesn't feel like talking to a friend. But there's a very important distinction to be made there, because you need to clearly define the line between the communication that should be automated, things that shouldn't take time, you shouldn't wait for. If you're just asking for a question that the answer is very easy for, or you just want to change your details, change your address, for example, for an order, you shouldn't have to wait for someone to have time for you. That should happen automatically. So we as a company have also focused heavily on building a strong AI layer of machine learning with all these different features, starting with sentiment analysis that helps us routing and prioritizing these things. And you can see the little emojis that sort of display that sentiment of customers, but then also going towards bot behaviors and automations and making sure that the communication is done best for both sides. Another very important for me personally, but also in terms of our product team and engineering teams, another aspect is the fact that we built this product with customers, and we co-create with customers all the time. You can see here some pictures from some of the sessions that we did with them. And we really focused on taking these somewhat smaller companies that would really tell us about what the problems that they're solving are, explain to us how they talk to customers, why they talk to customers, and explain to us the problems that they are already aware of, but also brainstorm to find these deeper problems that they maybe never even thought about, or more find innovative solutions that they could employ for things that they didn't even consider was possible. Because at MessageBird, we don't just want to build solutions for today, we want to build solutions for tomorrow. And this is really amazing for me because as a company, when I started, we were about 40 people. Now we're almost 400 employees. So we're a large scale up, growing rapidly every day. And it's really important that we still keep the agility. We're very dynamic. We're developing a lot very fast, of course, also keeping in mind the quality of the code that we're writing. But what I mean more to say is that we don't have any corporate processes. Our development cycles don't take months. If somebody has an idea of something innovative, we just go build it. And that's also what happened with Inbox, that we spoke to these customers, we built prototypes, we validated, we iterated, we went back to building. And that process started a couple months ago, but keeps continuing. And we never want to stop it because Inbox, as it is right now, it solves a lot of problems, but we know there are new problems showing up every day. So we want it to be dynamic, and it's in the end just the beginning. And it was definitely a great success. And what we looked at next was, okay, so now we're sort of solving the omni-channel problem for companies. That's amazing. But then doesn't the end user, the consumer, also face this problem? And if you think about it, going back to the example of a shoe shop, imagine you ordered shoes online. They came and then it's the wrong size. Now you want to complain or ask someone, hey, what do I do in this situation? How would you approach it? You probably know already that, okay, I would need to know my order ID so they can identify me. Then you would go into your email and try to get the confirmation email. Maybe if you can't find it, you would think, oh, wait, I actually said I would like to receive the confirmation over Messenger, or maybe it was WhatsApp. So you end up having to go through all these different platforms to find the communication that you need. Now, what we thought about was, imagine a world where you would just go to the company's website and you would see a chat widget. But it wouldn't be just live chat. You could see the history of all your conversations with this company, and even further, the history of all the orders that you made. So then the unified context and the 360 context is not just given to the company to make it easier for them to talk to you, it's also made for you. And that's where our recent development of the omni-channel widget came from. And I'd like to show you a video that we made that will sort of explain a little bit what it looks like and take you for a customer journey of using it. I really hope that you will be able to hear the sound because it definitely makes it great, but if you can't, the visuals will suffice as well. Perfect. So that was it in terms of the video. And so we launched Inbox at the beginning of March, and it was a great success. We saw a lot of traction. We saw a lot of customers coming, and as a company, we were going for a very successful period. But you might also realize that beginning of March was also the time when the global pandemic actually blew up, where a lot of businesses were affected, but also a lot of people were affected. So we found ourselves in this tricky position where we were successful, but there was so much happening across the world. There was such a big crisis. And we really started thinking that as a company that focuses on communication, and obviously it's remote communication, there's a lot that we can do, a lot that we can give back. And so with that, what came was a project that we started called Inbox for Good. And what that meant was we opened our services for free to all the organizations and NGOs, either existing ones or those that were starting to set up, so that they could use us for free. And we also offered to them, the possibility of us working with them to try to find solutions for the problems they're trying to solve as best as we could. And this is something that for me personally was very important, because as a teenager and as a young professional, I always did a lot of charity work. I always worked for NGOs. I was really immersed in that, and it brought a lot of value to my life. And when I started working more full-time, it started becoming more and more difficult to marry the two things, to have time to volunteer. And so with this project and with the privilege I got of leading it, it was really important that I could really see the value of what we do as a company, how much it can change, what the impact can be. And so here are some examples of the organizations we helped. I would like to mention some of them, starting with Central Corona. Central Corona was an NGO that was founded in March in Brazil. And the story there was that these two Brazilian guys reached out to us. They don't live in Brazil themselves, but one of them has a sister who's a doctor in Brazil, and she's an oncologist. And in her hospital, it was decided that not all doctors should be in the hospital all the time, just to make sure that not everybody gets sick, especially doctors like oncologists. And so she ended up being stuck at home, feeling helpless with all the crisis going on, with all these patients coming to her hospital, and she wasn't able to do anything. And so they together came up with the idea of creating a platform where doctors just like herself could sign up online and help out patients through talking to them over WhatsApp, over Telegram, over Messenger, over all of these different channels. And they could help them identify symptoms. They could help identify whether they should go to the hospital or not. So that helped these doctors, these patients, but also in a great way, the hospitals, because they were offloaded of all these different patients that would maybe just be paranoid or be freaking out or actually not have symptoms that would classify them for having COVID. And so we saw great success with that. There were hundreds of doctors onboarded within a matter of days, and thousands of patients helped. And it still keeps going, it keeps growing. And we also saw the same model sort of happening across all different countries. We saw doctors helping patients in India, in the US, in Canada, or also initiatives of, for example, doctors in the Netherlands helping patients in Zimbabwe. So a lot of great things happened there. And another important one I want to mention is Crown Coronation. You see the UCL logo here, and it's because University College London was one of the universities that initiated this project together with others from across the globe. And what they did and what they're doing still right now is they started a clinical trial around the world for finding a cure for COVID. And the clinical trial was meant for 50,000 different healthcare workers across the globe in different countries like US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and many, many others. And what they do is they send the medicine by post to all these healthcare workers in one package. And then everything else that's connected to the trial actually happens over SMS. So they send daily instructions of which medicine to take over SMS. They also do interviews with all these people, asking them about their symptoms over SMS. We made it so that the SMSs the participants respond to are free, and we're powering the whole operation and working with Crown Coronation to make it happen. And so this really makes you realize the amount of impact. Sure, all we do is communication, but the amount of impact that communication really has in the world. And this was something very important for me, because when we started doing it, I started sharing the news of all these organizations with my engineers and my teams. And I could really see that, overnight, their motivation to work changed drastically, because they weren't anymore just writing code. They weren't just building, components, building blocks and databases. They could understand tangibly what it means, if they build it, how much impact it has. And so it was great to notice that. And another thing that was great was the fact that with the size of the company we're at now, almost 400 people, we don't get to work all together anymore. And for this project, we needed a lot of people from different departments. And it was really insane for me to see how easy it was to just mention to people from legal, from finance, from marketing, hey guys, we're doing this. Do you have 5 minutes to help? And for everybody to be doing things that maybe weren't even their main responsibility. And that flexibility is definitely there at MessageBird in terms of people, but also in terms of the organization. And that's also important for me, because going back to the beginning where I told you a bit about how I struggled with finding my path, well, I joined MessageBird as a software engineer. And I transitioned into a tech lead role, but I still had these struggles of, hey, am I really sure this is the one thing I want to focus on? And I remember at that time the empowerment that the company gave me of talking to me about this and finding out together with me that the role I was actually looking for was in product. So I transitioned into being a product owner and later a product manager, because that job, that position is about wearing different hats. It is about doing work in different disciplines. It's about, being an engineer for a day, or maybe a salesperson, or even a customer support agent when needed. And so it wasn't a problem anymore that I was interested in these many different things. It became an advantage. It became something that I could leverage. And having that flexibility and also the trust of the company to take a risk with me, to invest in me, and to, letting me develop in that direction, that's something that's definitely there and something I extremely value. And in terms of the people, it's also an interesting thing, because, we sometimes do these things with people across the company of asking like, hey, what is the one thing you love about MessageBird? And while there is a certain percentage of people that always respond, yeah, it's the daily lunch, because we do have great food at the company, most people actually say the same thing, which is people. That is the people that are important. And we care a lot about making sure that we have an amazing atmosphere and culture and respect and diversity within our team, within all of our teams globally. And so something that I would like to show you right now is a bit of a video to show you our people, how we work, but also focus on the values that we all share. And again, I hope the sound is going to work, but let's see how that goes.
3, 2, 1. Here we go!
Perfect. So yeah, that was the video. And in case you didn't notice there, we're hiring. Hashtag join the nest. And the hashtag comes from the fact that as MessageBird, we call ourselves all birds, all the employees. And so therefore join the nest. Feel free to visit our careers page. You can also scan the QR code. I hope that works to enter it. And then in terms of the open positions, in total, we have about 30. Some of them are in the engineering department. That you can see here. There's also more. There's some in the product department and the design department and many, many more. So definitely visit the careers page. I'll go here just so you can scan the code again. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Anna, for hosting this amazing conference. And I'm here in case you would like to ask some questions.
Thank you, Anna. It was great. I really loved that you shared your personal journey, how you struggled with, finding your career path and the impact that you do together at MessageBird, and the examples that you shared with Central Corona was really impressive, and it was a really touching story. And I think in hard times like this, we need to support each other, and it's really great that you got involved and supported the good cause. And people are thanking you, and they're saying that it was very insightful. And so here are some questions. How can a software engineer prepare and make a transition to product owner? As a graduate, how long it would take to reach that stage?
I think this is a really interesting question. And also for context, this is the story that happened with me, but it also happened with a whole bunch of product managers and product owners at our company. So this is something that we really encourage. And to some extent, it's very much about the willingness to try new things and to get involved as an engineer into customer meetings. And this is something that we do as an organization all in all. The sessions that I mentioned with co-creating products with our customers, it's not just that I join these sessions, it's also our designers and our engineers. And we try to encourage them to have this sort of wider thinking and business thinking. And in terms of time, I think it's really tricky. For me, it happened, within a matter of a week. I was just an engineer that was getting more and more involved into these topics, and I would join some customer meetings. I would read a lot more. And then my manager one day just said, "Hey, would you like to just try it?" And then I tried it. After a week, I said, yes, okay, let's do it. And then I was a product owner. And of course, it's also, we put a lot of emphasis on making sure that people know that there's no such thing as failing at our company. Mm-hmm. So if you try and it didn't work out.
Yeah. It didn't work out, but at least you tried, right? What if it will work out like it did work out for you? That was super awesome.
Exactly.
Here is another question. Do you have remote opportunities for software QAs?
Yeah, so with remote, it's a little bit tricky. Obviously, these days, everybody is remote. So we have ways of onboarding people across the globe, but mostly all the whole engineering department is based in Amsterdam in our headquarters. We do, however, provide relocation packages, and we help our candidates when they get hired to actually move across with their whole family. So this is what we sort of stick to, and we like to be together as a team. We see a lot of value in being able to communicate, being able to be in the same space. That's to some extent why we're all in the same office, but at the same time we're not closing it off for the future. We might move on to that, especially within these times of COVID.
Right, that's cool. Someone was asking about the technical writer role. Do you have technical writing roles open at career page, at the careers that you're offering?
Yes, we do. That's sort of when you go to our careers page, you would have to, I think, go into product, and that's where we have technical writer opportunities. And this is something that, it's an interesting position because...
Is there a freelance opportunity available for this position, or it's...
So normally we don't hire freelancers, but this is something that we're open to. So definitely reach out and talk to our recruiters, and there's definitely options. We're pretty flexible. We can figure something out.
Having a look at the careers page, do you have only roles in Amsterdam?
In terms of product and engineering, yes, it's currently only in Amsterdam. But again, we are growing really rapidly. So we're not closing off the idea of opening offices once the pandemic sort of slows down in other locations. So definitely reach out and keep in touch with us, either to me directly through LinkedIn or through the careers page.
All right. Are there trainings and internships available for students?
So we don't have an official program for that right now, but we are open and we are looking for talent always. So again, reach out and we sort of take it on a case-by-case basis. Maybe there's things that we can figure out already. Maybe there are things that we can figure out for the future.
Can you tell more? Can you tell in brief of how you screen the resumes? Probably you're not doing that.
I used to actually.
Really? Okay, maybe if you know something like, and what skills are you looking for machine learning roles?
We are, for machine learning roles, we're looking for, people that it's two different paths. It could be you have a degree in that and you're very skilled, but we always also look for some sort of on-field experiences of things that you did. And in general, with all roles, we always look for people that are to some extent focused on different things and open to different things. And, you can see from the resume that they have the interest of opening up their minds and really not just being a developer, but again, understanding the products we're building and going a little bit deeper into relating to that.
Right, sounds good. Many people are asking about roles, and I think that you have already mentioned that the roles, all roles are listed on your career page. So when you go to MessageBird.com, right, and then you can check out the roles, and so you won't be repeating this again because you just answered that. There's the link to the career page, and people are asking for your LinkedIn. So after the session with you, because right now I want to take a moment to ask some questions that people are asking.
Sure.
Is English the main language in your company?
It is the main language indeed. Of course, we have a lot of people across the globe. For example, in our design team, there's a lot of Brazilian people, so they tend to sometimes, talk Portuguese to each other. But it's only in when making coffee. Yeah. But in general, it's all English.
Did you have to learn Dutch when you moved to Amsterdam?
This is an embarrassing one because I've been living here for 8 years and I still can't say a word. I mean, not a word, but it's definitely a place where you really don't need to know the language, which is maybe sad for the Dutch. But
yeah, I mean, when I've been to Amsterdam, like you don't really people speak English really proficiently. You don't really need to. I mean, of course you do, but you don't. Your companies that what you're sharing, to make some small talk, and you need this level, but your company doesn't require this.
Definitely not. And even when you're going to the cinema or museums or exhibitions, everything is in English. So
it's super international already, and people from all over the world are based in Amsterdam. And so check out everything MessageBird and careers that they're offering. Anna, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for this interesting presentation, and feel free to drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat. I saw someone shared the page to the careers at MessageBird, and check out what MessageBird is looking for, and maybe that will be your next career change step.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thanks for organizing it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.